Welcome to Conversations with Joseph Peter Drennan.
Hey everyone, welcome into the first episode of Conversations with Joseph Peter Drennan. I am your host, Mike Leon. Joseph here is a trial and appellate lawyer with more than 44 years of experience practicing before state and federal courts, and his work spans federal criminal cases, civil rights litigation, immigration matters, and complex cases involving accountability for state-sponsored terrorism. Today's episode, we're going to talk about Joseph's extensive background, everything I just mentioned there. We're going to cover how he came into law, the path that led him into the federal court, and how his practice has evolved into the work he does today. Joseph, it's good to see you. I'm excited to learn a little bit more about all of those backgrounds, including the state-sponsored terrorism. I got to hear more about that too. But before we get into your current practice and work, can you walk us through a little bit of your early background? What kind of drew you into the legal field?
Sure. Well, thank you very much for having me, Mike. What drew me into the practice that I've developed over the last 44 years? Well, I initially was interested in politics and the law in high school in Connecticut. And I had the good fortune to be an intern for Senator Lowell Weicker the summer of 1973, which happened to be the summer of the Senate Watergate Committee hearings. And I was here for that summer and attended the hearings every day and was absolutely fascinated by the proceedings there and what the country was going through at that time. And that only intensified my interest in the law. I went to the University of Richmond undergrad, where I majored in political science, and I came to law school at the Catholic University of America, Columbus School of Law, primarily to be right here in Washington. And during law school, I clerked with the federal government, first with the Labor Department and then with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And my initial plans, believe it or not, were to be a government lawyer. And I felt that I would get hired by the Labor Department. Beat Block, who was the Solicitor of Labor, was interested in hiring me. But when President Reagan took his oath of office, the very first thing that he did was to impose a hiring freeze in the federal government, which caused me to have a change in plans, if you like. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because what I did was I went to the courthouse and put my name on the list of lawyers to take cases under the Criminal Justice Act. I initially started practicing in the Superior Court of the District of Columbia, tried dozens of cases, and got a feel for it, and was very satisfied with doing that kind of work. Along the way, I had a case involving an Israeli immigrant who was arrested on the metro for trying to assist two ladies and basically who were being remonstrated with by a station officer. And I thought to myself, gee, this could be a civil rights case. So I brought that case, and I was 26 years old when I first met Mr. Hefez, and I filed the case across the street from the Superior Court in the federal court, the U.S. District Court, and that case survived a motion to dismiss. And an assertion of qualified sovereign immunity, something that we hear a lot about these days. The case went to trial, and I achieved a jury verdict in my client's favor for what I thought was a fortune at that time, $168,000. And I thought that it was all over, but it wasn't over. The District of Columbia, the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority, whose police officers were implicated in the case, appealed the case to the D.C. Circuit, And I tried the case at the age of 28. I argued the case before the D.C. Circuit when I was 29, and the three judges on that panel were Antonin Scalia, James Buckley, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Wow.
And they did the right thing. They affirmed, and because of the publicity and attention that I got from that case, I got several other cases, and that's how I got started handling police misconduct cases.
That's a great story, and obviously we know those Supreme Court justices and what they went on to do. I did want to ask you, because I mentioned in the intro the different areas of law. A lot of people don't know maybe one vertical, not all of these verticals like you're in. Your federal criminal defense, you got civil rights, immigration law, obviously, which is something that's prevalent in the news now, and you've done litigation about the state-sponsored terrorism. How did your work evolve into that eclectic of a mix over this time?
It's interesting how fate can often dictate the direction of one's career. And when I was handling the criminal defense cases in the Superior Court, I happened to live in an apartment building just across the river over in Roslyn, where there were a number of Lebanese families that lived in that building. And the mother of a Lebanese gentleman who was working in the Gulf was very concerned about her son, because her son was working for a Saudi prince and he hadn't been paid. And so when he came back from Saudi Arabia, the son was given a couple of checks drawn on a bank in California by the prince, and the checks bounced because the account was closed. So I filed a lawsuit against the Saudi prince, and that was about when I was, 32 years old. And that case ultimately resulted in a favorable judgment against the prince for over $250,000. And the prince wouldn't respond to debtors' interrogatories, and I got an order to compel him to respond, and he blew that off too. And Judge Ellis over in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia held the prince in contempt, and the contempt fines went up to a couple of $1 million before the case was ultimately settled. So that got me experience in handling commercial litigation involving the Middle East. And because of that connection, a colleague of mine, Thomas Fortune Fay, fine lawyer, who was a pioneer in state-sponsored terrorism cases, invited me to be a co-counsel in a case with him and his then partner, Stephen Perlis, against the Islamic Republic of Iran over the Marine barracks bombing in Lebanon in 1983. And we ultimately prevailed in that case, achieving a default judgment in 2007. And that judgment was, at the time, the largest civil judgment in the history of the U.S. District Court, $2.6 billion. And Iran came out and appealed. They allowed themselves to be defaulted, but they appealed when we grabbed a bank account in New York at Citibank that had more than $1.9 billion in it. That case went up ultimately to the Supreme Court, which in 2016 affirmed the lower court findings, and we collected on that seizure, and we continued to make efforts to collect assets on behalf of our clients. So that's how I got into representing victims of state-sponsored terrorism initially. I thereupon brought 5 additional cases on behalf of American servicemen and their families who were not included in the initial case. and achieved judgments in each of them. So we're still endeavoring to collect those judgments because we have literally over a couple of $1 billion in unsatisfied judgments.
Hearing you talk, Joseph, first off, you gave 3 different years spanning 40 years, 80s case, 07, 2016. So that speaks about the court system in and of itself. But I did want to ask you, because the case that you mentioned, right, a lot of these claims are against powerful institutions, foreign states, like your example, maybe some federal agencies. So what do you consider, or what tends to guide you when you're deciding whether or not to take on those kind of cases?
The threshold consideration, as it is in any case, is the merits of the case. And is this a case that is provable? And in the case of the American servicemen that were killed in what was the largest loss of life by the U.S. military since World War II, in that instance, those Marines and several members of the Army and the Navy who died in that tragedy were posted in Lebanon by President Reagan as peacekeepers. So they were not there as soldiers, and because they were not there as soldiers, there was an avenue to get civil redress against the Islamic Republic of Iran, which is a state sponsor of terrorism under the Enabling Act that my colleagues Tom Fay and Steve Perlis got enacted by the Congress back in the late 1990s to facilitate these actions against foreign sovereigns. So that's is there a case? Yes. With regard to Iran, we knew from the earlier terrorism cases that Iran was not defending the cases. They were allowing the Islamic Republic to be defaulted, basically just kind of thumbing their nose at the American court system. But they came out and hired lawyers and fought when their assets started being seized.
Well, Joseph, let me go back to the point that I made before that you articulated, actually, by giving us that timeline and the 30, 40 years, my math sucks right now, range. So when you represent individuals and families in cases that do unfold over very, very long timelines, how does the reality, and how do you break it to them, obviously, but how does it also affect the way you approach the strategy, the expectations, all the communications with the client from the outset?
In the state-sponsored terrorism cases, we take great care to tell the client to have realistic expectations that these cases can take many, many years, and in many instances, the parents of the deceased servicemen have died by the time the collection comes, and I'm dealing with estates of those Gold Star mothers and fathers. But we take great pains to point out to the clients that the cases take many, many years to resolve. I mean, for one thing, since Iran is now the signatory to the Geneva Convention, we had to affect service of process through the State Department and the Swiss embassy in Tehran, where the Swiss basically conduct the diplomatic business of the United States, because the U.S. has no diplomatic relations with Iran, and that whole process can take a year or more. So we tell the clients at the outset that it's going to take a long time. And looking at it from my personal standpoint of being a lawyer in private practice and having to pay the electric bill to keep the lights turned on and the phone bill to keep the phone service on and to feed my family, I had to carry on with other aspects of my practice to keep income flowing, because from the filing of the first state-sponsored terrorism case to the realization of any collection money took 15 years. So criminal defense work, appellate work, other commercial litigation. I also got involved in representing foreign officials who were sued for war crimes and violations of the Torture Victim Protection Act, and that litigation also kept me engaged. And my connection there was based on the fact that I represented a couple of officials from a failed state, Somalia, one of whom was the former prime minister of Somalia. So that necessity basically had me developing legal opportunities in other areas where my knowledge of the region and history helped me to be a suitable attorney to provide legal representation to those officials.
Yeah. Joseph, as we wrap here on this episode, when you look at your practice as it stands today, what are some through lines that kind of not only connect the different type of cases that you handle, but what do you see as your core purpose, or what is your core purpose of your work going forward?
My core purpose, and this harkens back to my days in law school. I had the benefit of going to a small law school where I kept a strong relationship with my professors, and the Columbus School of Law at the Catholic University of America really did train lawyers to be prepared to practice law. And so committed am I to that institution because of the opportunities that it afforded me by basically giving me a good knowledge base within which to start practicing law. Caused me to be on the board of visitors there, where I am today. But what is my purpose? My purpose is to be the best lawyer I can be, which is to represent people who are in need of services, in need of legal representation, and everyone, irrespective of how infamous the person might be or how shocking the crimes with which a person might be charged might be, everyone is entitled to receive a vigorous, strong, and good representation before the court. And that's what my pole star is for practicing law.
Very well said. Joseph, thank you so much for the time, insights, and sharing your background with the audience. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. It's been a pleasure to have some time to chat with you.
And that's it for today's episode of Conversations with Joseph Peter Drennan. If you want to learn more, you want to connect with Joseph and his practice, do me a favor, visit josephpeterdrennan.com. Thank you again for listening. Hit subscribe, give us a like, leave a review, comment, share the episode with someone who needs to hear it. I am Mike Leon. We will see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.